Monthly meeting of the Stratford Town Council to order, and I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight and welcome, especially those people who are here and those who are watching online. I acknowledge that the land upon which we gather is the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, and we pay our respects to the Indigenous Mi'kmaq people of this territory, past, present, and future. Second item on our agenda tonight is a declaration of a conflict of interest. Are there any items on our agenda tonight to which any councillor or staff member has a conflict of interest? Okay, if not, we'll go to approval of the agenda. A change has been requested to the agenda to move planning and heritage to take the place of the first item of business, which will be item number 9, safety services. So if we could swap safety services for planning, I would entertain a motion to do so. Okay, so moved. Second, okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Anyone against? Motion carried. Okay, so we have the agenda approved. The minutes of our meeting of April 12th, 2023 are in your package. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? Anything anyone would like to see changed? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of those minutes. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. Business arising from the minutes. Is there anything in the minutes, those minutes, that we're not going to be covering tonight? Take just a minute to make sure that there's nothing there that you would like to follow up on that we won't be speaking about tonight. It was a long meeting last meeting. We covered a lot of business and we got a lot of things done. So my compliments to the council for all that work.
Yeah, also don't forget the day staff here. They're all here.
And the staff as well, of course, yeah. They're the ones to do the work, yeah.
Yeah, they're here all day.
That's right, yeah. Okay, so nothing in the minutes. I'll entertain a motion for, oh no, we've already approved the minutes, I'm sorry. Okay, so business arising, there's no business arising. Any presentations from the floor, Jeremy? No? My report is in your package. Let's go over a few quick highlights. We had a meeting with a Member of Parliament, Lawrence Macaulay, discussed Stratford infrastructure needs, and we had about 9 items. I think that agenda was shared with Council, and we got through all 9 items, and got a positive response. A couple of follow-ups on that agenda with our Member of Parliament and his executive officer. In the fundraising feasibility study for the community campus, that was good news. We got an excellent presentation there about, and I think recreation. You'll be saying more about that in your report. No, anyway, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I guess that'll be covered later anyway. We'll one of the reports will speak more about that. We participated in a meeting with the manager of the FCM Green Municipal Fund. There are a lot of opportunities under that fund for some of the contributing to some of the infrastructure needs we have here in Stratford. So look forward to working with that individual and with the Green Municipal Fund to make some of those initiatives possible. And we did have a meeting with our new MLAs, Jill Burridge, Minister of Finance, and MLA Jen Redmond, Minister of Workforce, Advanced Learning and Population. And that was a very good meeting as well. We got a lot of, covered a lot of ground. We got through our agenda and a number of, I think we got some good information across and a good exchange of information. The Shape Stratford initiative is moving forward. Had a public meeting and also a meeting of all the Shape Stratford groups, the Intermunicipal Committee, the Affordable Housing Task Force, the working group, and the project team. And I think that's moving very well, and I'm looking forward to some really good results from that project. It's it's got some really promising research and some really valuable recommendations, I hope, and changes will come out of that. Attended a meeting of the capital area mayors and CAOs, met the new CAO in Charlottetown, Eleanor Mohammed, and I think she's going to be great to work with. So look forward to working with Charlottetown on joint ventures as well. Yeah. So any comments? I was interviewed on a couple of occasions by the CVC about the RCMP retroactive pay and about the rezoning that was approved for the Crossroads development. I think there's a lot of interest in both those areas, and look forward to positive developments on those subjects. Any questions or comments on my report? If not, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just one line there. We met with the superintendent, RCMP, myself, you and Jeremy, but also Councillor Cox and Councillor Chandler was there too, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm not real good at making notes sometimes, so I must have moved on to something else before I wrote their names down. Sorry about that. Yeah.
I think it does mention councillors. Just not by name, but it does say councillors.
And I guess I should correct one thing too. We did meet with a member of the community, a business person who was interested in locating a business associated with recreation here, and I mentioned that Councillor Chandler attended, and in fact she didn't. So my apologies for that. It was a meeting that just came up quickly, and because it was a business, we assumed that it had to do with planning, and then we found out that it had to do with recreation. So that was an oversight, and we will. I think Wendy will update you on that after the meeting. Okay, so if no questions, we'll move on to the Chief Administrative Officer report.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just go over a few of the highlights. My report is in your package. Attended several meetings with regard to the Crossroads development, and glad to see that went through, and we'll be proceeding down the road and with applications here in the near future. Attended a planning session with Maritime Electric and representatives from the town. With all the predicted development and increase in immigration and actual building in the town, Maritime Electric are looking at a new substation somewhere in the area of the core, so that they can be able to be prepared for the servicing of that in the future. So it's good to have those proactive meetings with them and be prepared for that. So there are a couple of areas of land that we may be looking at with them to look at, and there may be an opportunity for some solar fields in the vicinity of these areas too. So that's the second time we've met with them on certain items, so I haven't seen that in the past, so it's good to see that they're being proactive. And as the Mayor mentioned, we met with Lawrence Macaulay with regard to several initiatives in the town, and I've been in contact with his representative several times since then. And I attended the Federation of Prince Edward Island Municipalities meeting in Surrey, PEI. The theme was really about density and the fact that the province is growing so rapidly, and we have to be prepared for that in the future. So there's some really great presentations on that, on how we can start to prepare and be able to provide some affordable housing for folks too. So a lot of good connections there. And I conducted interviews with Wendy with regard to the town planner position, and we're glad to say that we are in negotiations with someone right now, so hopefully we'll have someone in place soon. They do have to move from another province, so they are looking for accommodations, which we all know are hard to find. So hopefully that, and we're going to try to help if we can. And as the Mayor indicated, attended the Capital Area Mayor's meeting, and great meeting. There was a lot of good subjects on there. basic income guarantee. Active transportation was a big one, and how we can regionalize that. Again, housing was a big topic, and the amount of affordable housing that needs to be provided in the future. Transit was also talked about. Revenue sharing agreement, we were all on the same page for that, which is important as we negotiate with the government. And then we gave an update on our Shape Stratford program. So there's all kinds of other items in there, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Mr. Crosby, I just have one question for you. The line item on your April 27th items, attended a meeting with the mayor, infrastructure director, and landowners regarding a town project along their property. Could you tell me just what ward that might have been in?
There was a project that we had where there was some encroachment on their property, and there were some discussions with that landowner with regard to whether or not there would be some compensation and such. So we're dealing with that situation now.
Could you tell me what ward it's in?
Ward 3.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you. Oh, one last thing. Our minute taker asked that you please speak clearly into the mic and make sure they're turned on. Okay? Thank you.
Close as you can be to it. It seems funny, but that's what they need for online.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to item number 9, which is Planning and Heritage report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is everyone picking me up okay?
Yep.
I'll find out in a second. I'll give you
Okay, sure. All right, just always want to make sure I have it pointed in the right direction with everything working. So thank you. Certainly, it's fair to say a much lighter agenda item on planning, development, heritage this month than last. In fact, we only have one substantive resolution to discuss, and it is a somewhat minor one, I have to say. I'll begin by stating, you'll note the minutes there are present for your review. We had in the most recent meeting of May 1st, definitely a lighter meeting. We had some regrets from some of our dedicated citizen committee members. Certainly that's understandable, but considering the lightness of the agenda, I think it was okay. A part of the discussion certainly was on the April monthly building permit summary. When you review the minutes from the meeting from May 1st, you'll note that our Director of Planning, Dale McKeegan, who is present here with us, noted certainly that things are a little leaner, it's fair to say, this year to date than it was last year. Certainly there's a number of variables involved there, I would expect, in terms of interest rates, rising development costs, rising building costs. Certainly labor shortages are plaguing, I think, every field of industry here in Prince Edward Island. Although I did have an informal conversation with Dale today, he did know that things are picking up, so certainly we look forward to more development in the future. One thing that we discussed in our meeting was looking at, I think there used to be an inventory of, for lack of a better term, developable lots, I suppose, in the town. And that's something that we may look at doing in the future so we can have a good understanding on a real-time basis in the town, what the state of development is, how much area there is for development, how much opportunity there is, so we can have a good understanding of, and that could help, I guess, in all future development applications going forward. So I really want to appreciate and extend my thanks to the town staff for always compiling their statistics in a timely fashion. I think it does give us an idea of where we're at year to year. Certainly nothing to panic about yet. We are seeing development is still continuing, though certainly at a lesser clip than I would suggest than last year. Though we still have a lot of runway left in 2023 to consider. Only have one resolution for us to consider today, which is a resolution PH 011-2023, which is a variance request bearing number VA 001-23. The applicant is PEI Holdings Incorporated. It's a lot size variant request at 8 and 10 Barclay Avenue, being on parcel number 328583. It is moved by myself. At this point in time, I will read the resolution in for your consideration, and then I'll ask for a seconder, and then hopefully we can move to a discussion. So, whereas an application has been received from PAL Holdings, Inc. for a lot size variance to propose lot 2023-2, a portion of parcel number 328583 located at 10 Barclay Avenue, for the purpose of subdividing a semi-detached dwelling. And whereas the lot size variance request for proposed lot 2023-2 is for, now there's a typo in your agenda here, it says 36 square feet, it's actually 390 square feet, or 9.2%, for a semi-detached dwelling lot located within the medium-density residential zone R2. The applicant therefore is seeking a lot size variance from 4,900 square feet per unit to 4,510 square feet per unit. And whereas pursuant to Section 6 of our Planning and Development Bylaw, variances from the Development Bylaw, Council may authorize a minor variance not exceeding 10% from the provisions of this bylaw if the variance is appropriate in accordance with this section. Variance applications shall demonstrate one of the following be considered against the following tests for justifying a variance approval. A, the lot in question has peculiar conditions, including small lot size, irregular lot shape, or exceptional topographical conditions, which make it impractical to develop in strict conformity with bylaw standards. B, strict application of all bylaw standards would impose undue hardship on the applicant by excluding the applicant from the same rights and privileges for reasonable use of his or her lot as enjoyed by other persons in the same zone. Or C, the variance is consistent with the intent and purpose of the official plan. 6.1.3, authorization for a variance shall be documented and recorded. No variance shall be granted where the difficulty experienced is a result of intentional or negligent conduct of the applicant in relation to the property. Where council deems that a variance application could have a significant effect on adjacent properties or properties in the general vicinity, council may require that a public meeting be held. Whereas the lot in question is located on Barclay Avenue, which is a developed area of Southport pre-existing the town as established in 1995. It is a narrow dead-end street with small shallow lots to the south. Variances have been granted along the south side of the street in the past. In 2018, 2 lot size variances were granted to construct a single dwelling at 22 Barclay Avenue, requiring a 22.5% variance, and to construct a semi-detached dwelling at 26 and 28 Barclay Avenue, requiring a 27.6% variance. In 2021, a lot size variance was granted to construct a semi-detached dwelling at 16 Barclay Avenue, requiring a 22% variance. And whereas in 2021, the applicant reached out to staff to verify a semi-detached dwelling could be constructed on the lot. Staff verified the lot could be developed as a semi-detached lot, as the block contains only 27.3% semi-detached dwelling lots in a block, where up to 40% is permitted within the R2 zone. Staff also evaluated the total lot area available at the time and concluded the lot does have sufficient lot area to meet the requirement of 9,800 square feet. The applicant's lawyer explained to staff that although the lot has 2 parcel descriptions, creating the now proposed, quote, common boundary, the property has been transferred as one lot since 1973. The semi-detached dwelling was designed to sit along the proposed, quote, common boundary per the existing lot descriptions. The areas of the proposed lots were unknown until after the dwelling was constructed, and a new survey plan was prepared. Therefore, no intentional or negligent conduct of the applicant occurred in relation to the property per section 6.1.4 above, whereas the proposed lot 2023-2 meets all other lot requirements, including lot coverage, frontage, and front, side, and rear yard setbacks. Therefore, no significant effect is expected on adjacent properties or other properties in the vicinity per section 6.1.5. Be it resolved then that council grant approval to an application received from PAL Holdings Incorporated for a lot size variance of 390 square feet or 9.2% to lot 2023-2, a portion of parcel number 328583 located at 10 Barclay Avenue, for the purpose of subdividing a 2-unit semi-detached dwelling. I'm wondering if I could have a seconder to the motion.
Yeah, this resolution, the bottom line there, bears the recommendation of.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and this resolution bears the recommendation of the Planning and Heritage Committee as discussed at our monthly meeting held on May 1st, 2023. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So it's now been moved, and we'll have a could we have a seconder? Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. So, in terms of this,
Is there a plan?
yes. Dale, can you? Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, just a survey plan, yeah.
So this shows the area of the currently constructed building. And so what you're seeing here is this was the survey plan that had been completed after the construction had been completed. So I think it's important to note that this is an already constructed building. I understand it's occupied. I understand that the requirement for the variance only came about when the property was resurveyed, and it was noted that the minimum lot size was not adhered to. Importantly, for your consideration, setbacks are still in conformance with their zoning and development bylaw, so there is not there's not any unnecessary encroachment upon neighboring properties. Certainly, there's still treat areas present. Now, Dale, I'm wondering as well if in a separate tab you could bring up the picture that you had forwarded to myself showing the constructed building.
Yes, put that second here.
Okay.
No, it's actually on an email I have here.
Yeah.
Yep. Just give me a second here, please.
So this is located directly across what used to be Stogie's convenience store, is that correct?
It's across from the Kevin Road, yeah, from Stogie's Convenience. I'll just might carry on with some discussion while Dale brings up that photograph. So, as you know, when you look at 6.1.2 of the zoning and development bylaw, it can only we can only really grant this under the law when the lot in the application demonstrates certain criteria. The lot in question is peculiar conditions. I canvassed that with town staff. The town replies that the lot does have peculiar conditions. Town staff advised that when the lot had been transferred over the years, it would have been transferred as one lot, even though it is technically two lots. And when the lot changed ownership, it would have been given its own lot number. So certainly that is somewhat out of the ordinary. It wasn't really recognized that there had been an imbalance from one lot side to the other until after the survey plan had been completed. So certainly there's no malice or ill intent from the applicants. The other thing is that if we were to apply a very strict application of our zoning and development bylaw, it would result in, I would suggest, an undue hardship on the applicants. As you note, from the resolution that's before you, there has been other variances granted of a much larger nature very recently in 2021 and 2018. And certainly the R2 zone that's located along Barclay Avenue is still very much well within the maximum permissible amount of semi-detached dwelling lots in the block. I think when you look at the development itself, it's a good looking development. It's in harmony with the existing structures on Barclay Avenue. It's consistent with the town's aims to increase housing supply. And I think really when you look at Barclay Avenue, I think it's a good model for how some light or density development can look with some mid-density. And I'm almost hesitant to use the word mid-density when you're discussing duplexes, can be incorporated in a nice way. Certainly it's not at all inconsistent, I would suggest, with the architectural features of Barclay Avenue that are currently in existence. Certainly there's plenty of room for parking. The duplex itself is, I would suggest, a nice building. It's going to attract certainly good residents to the area. All of which is to say, I think this is the kind of development that we want to encourage in our R2 zones, all of which is to say, and I don't think for one moment that the developer did anything wrong here. It was only upon the resurvey that their legal counsel reached out to the town and wanted to make sure that the rezoning was appropriate, and that's why they want the variance. That's really what our discussions were at planning committee, and that's why it bears the recommendation of the planning committee, but certainly open to hearing from the rest of you as to your thoughts on how all this happened, and any of your perspectives I would welcome at this time.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, if I may. So how do we not catch this in the building permit stage?
From what I understand, and Dale can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's simply because of a couple of things. The survey lines and boundaries on Barclay Avenue, I think they've all sort of shifted over the years. It's been conveyed as one lot together since 1973. So I think it's been a very long-standing issue with the lot. I think really the issue with this lot, Council Jackson, has existed for the last 50 years, give or take. And so I think for those reasons, when they came for the development permit, nobody was really able to catch it because the survey that was on the books at the time accurately reflected, I think, what they were looking to build. And they built in accordance with the survey. It's only when it was resurveyed properly with the actual legal descriptions in mind that the issue came to light. Thankfully, even though the issue came to light, we're still within the appropriate amount for setbacks and things of that nature. So it's not a building that's, too massive for the space, I would suggest. It's not a building that dominates the landscape or anything of that nature. Fair question for sure, but I think really this was inadvertence that's been in existence for 50 years.
Any other comments or questions?
I got a quick comment. If someone's building a new structure like this here, are they supposed to contact people within 500 feet or something of the build? Letters?
Yeah, no, is the answer. There's nothing under our zoning and development bylaw that requires that, Mr. Councillor, and even on a variance, as you'll note from, I think it's, I want to make sure I get this right. Under 6.1.5 of our bylaw, it says where council deems that a variance application could have a significant effect on adjacent properties or properties, we may require that a public meeting be held, but there is no requirement to send out notices or anything to that effect. Oh, sorry.
Can I just add something to that? Under the under the variance section of the bylaw, if it's greater than 10%, then it would be necessary to send out letters. Other than that, council has the right to approve it if it's lower than 10%.
Okay.
Okay?
Just a homeowner in the direct vicinity of this build contacted me, and I didn't, just recently, I didn't know the answer to that, so I was glad to hear that.
Was it about that specific
Yes.
development? It was it?
Yeah, about that building, yeah. So now I know the answer, I learned something, so thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Councillor McDonald, it's just for clarity, it's my understanding that it's the applicant that discovered the discrepancy?
It's the surveyor who discovered the discrepancy that was hired by the applicant, but certainly the applicant discovered the discrepancy, brought it forward for the town's consideration.
Is there any other problems, Jeff, or Councilor McDonald, in that area itself, like homes next to it, like various variances? Everything measured properly, surveyed properly?
It remains to be seen,
Yeah,
I would say.
yeah.
I might get Dale to speak, but as far as we know, no.
There are still a few lots vacant on Berkeley, and most of those lots, as Jeff said, or Councillor McDonald said, go back a few years. And a lot of them are substandard sized lots. So depending if you want to put a home on there or possibly a semi-detached as we have here, most likely it's going to require a variance of some sort. As you've seen in the past, there's been multiple variances approved through council. It may be the same going forward. And that being said, too, you have to look at the size of the house going on the lot or size of the building. You don't want to overbuild for the size of the lot as well.
And now that So, Councillor Cox, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I wasn't aware that there was interest or concern or any, or sentiments expressed about the development, so certainly that, I think, will be something going forward when we consider any further development applications.
If I understand correctly, it wasn't a negative, it was just a question, right?
No, it's kind of negative.
Oh, it was negative. What was the concern?
They just thought that they should have included in the equation that this was being put where it was at and what was happening with this build. And, they just said to me, like, they were in the belief that people are contacted and tell them that this is happening. That's what they thought. And a lot of people do believe that, you know, and depending on the community, depending on the build. But this person just asked, he said, all of a sudden this thing just kind of appears, you know, attached to my land in some respect, you know. And so they said, you know, and it's, they're not, the build is not on their land. It's not, you know, it's just that it's where it was there, and they just thought that they didn't know much about it. That was, they weren't totally upset, but they were just a little negative, a little bit inquiring, and they were good about it, but they want to know if I had any information.
Yeah. I'll hear from Dale as well, but I think my perspective on that in general is that, as Dale noted, there are certain times where applicants are required to give notice to neighboring properties. In the times they're not, hopefully it's always the hope that our agendas send out far enough in advance and it's reviewed that if there are developments that us as councillors are aware of or can see that may be an issue, certainly that you can solicit information from your constituents to bring forward so we can consider it either at planning board level or here at council.
Just further to that, keep in mind that every zone has a list of permitted uses, and they're as-of-right uses. They don't require to go back to public or to go require to get any notification sent out because they meet the intended permitted use that's in that zone. However, when there's a variance that exceeds 10%, then we send letters out to adjacent landowners. But if we had to send letters out for every type of development, that's all we'd be doing.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And
But
Dale, just for background, I'm having a hard time picturing exactly where this is, but there is another duplex, you know, that's been built in recent years on the corner. Would that build, okay, would that build have required a variance? And at that time, because I think that may have been unique to that area at that time, maybe, would that have required a letter out to
I wish I
local?
could answer that question. I wasn't here then.
It's an
Okay.
R2 zone, so
Yeah.
duplexes are allowed.
They're
Up to
allowed.
40% of
Yeah.
it can be semi-detached.
Yes, I'm just wondering if that first build required a similar variance, if we know that, if that's the property that's being referenced, and if neighboring properties were notified at that time.
So
If there was an expectation or something that they had participated in previously.
yeah, so when you look at 2018, the variance that had been requested then, that was a 22.5% variance. I think there would have had to have been letters sent out for that.
Should have been.
Yeah, and then in 2021, the one at 16 Berkeley, that was a 22% variance. Yeah, that should have gotten letters as well. And then 26 and 28 Berkeley, that was a 27.6. So same thing.
So it's understandable why your call would have thought that was
Yeah.
typical.
That's the point.
They would have got a letter about the other one and not about this one. That makes sense now.
So that might be some good information for
Mm.
you to understand.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for clarifying. Appreciate that.
Just one last kind of caution. So at last meeting, we decided in the core area to give up our kind of viewpoint on that. It alarmed me a little bit that something like that was not caught. Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it's less than 10%. But if you're asking us to be hands-off with a certain area, this concerns me that we can't answer our residents. It's not clear to them, and we're having to go back after it's built with no real choice in this matter. So it's a little frustrating and a little bit concerning going forward, I guess.
You're concerned about potential issues in the new two zones that are
Well, just with the inability for us to weigh in, I guess. This was the concern before, is if we're coming back after something's built to say, hey, we need to go back around and provide a variance to it because we missed it. I think that might speak to the level of detail that we think we should be looking at when we're approving these developments. If it's this one, if this lot wasn't as it was supposed to be, not to criticize anyone, but this kind of speaks to the fear of that. I mean, I still think we made the right decision, but I think like current zoning and surveying should be at our fingertips.
Absolutely. Dale's at the podium, so I'll let him speak.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Councillor Jackson, and as you're well aware, that we will have a pretty regimented checklist that's going to be consistent across the board for both of those zones. There was also a comment that staff made at that point in time, and made it to council. If at any point in time a variance is requested by the developer, we stated that we'd prefer that the variance go back to planning board and then through council, to make sure council saw everything going forward. But the checklist that we have made will take care of the standardization of everything.
So that's for all variances, eh?
Pardon me?
That's for all variances.
Any variances at all from deviating from what the checklist says?
Doesn't really matter whether it's less than 10% or whatever.
No,
Okay.
we'd rather see it go back to planning board and then into council.
Does that address your concern, Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, and this is a long-standing, with that 2018 variance, we're not gonna have to get into that today, but that probably could have been handled a little differently too. But anyway, I
Just might have a little further explanation. When they originally come in for the application, it was for a duplex on the lot. They weren't originally going to subdivide it down the middle, so it did meet all of the requirements then and didn't require any variances. And because of the way it's located on the lot, once they come back afterwards to subdivide it into two pieces, that's when it became an issue. So it's not that it was really missed, it's when they would come back to subdivide it afterwards that we had to put the variance in place. If they didn't subdivide it down the middle, and like Dale said, the lines are skewed a little bit on that property. So it's a unique situation, but it's not as if staff actually missed something. It's because of the
no,
lot.
and it's just a comment to Barclay, like this is 3 or 4 times now we've had
Sure.
variances in there for various reasons, so yeah, fair.
Yep, nope, I just wanted to explain that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Councillor Jackson, just in general, if we're talking about variances, if we're talking about development in these new zones, certainly I think it's always important that we are accountable to the citizens that we serve, and that's what our job is as councillors. We have absolutely, I think it's fair to say, given up some of the granular control about development in the new zones, but understanding that as our director Dale has noted, it's fairly robust design guidelines within those new zones. If people look to step outside those, then I expect it will come under very intense scrutiny here at this table, and I think that should be our guiding principle moving forward. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. Hey, thank you for, anything else on your report?
No, nothing at this time. Certainly, as Dale noted, things are very much heating up there. We look forward to the successful, hopefully, conclusion of the human resources endeavor to secure a new plan for the staff. So certainly hopeful that bears some fruit in the near term.
And I understand you have to leave, so I appreciate you coming.
I still got some time
Oh,
here,
that's
Mr.
good.
Mayor.
That's
Yeah,
great.
but not to kick me out.
I'm not kicking you out, I just clearing the way, I guess.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, you gotta go, you gotta go.
I'm with you, Jeff.
Okay, we'll now move on to item number 10, Recreation, Culture, and Events, and I'll ask the chair of that committee, Councillor Jill Chandler, to give her report.
Thank you, Your Worship. In regards to our committee meetings, the April Recreation, Culture, and Events Committee meeting was canceled as we had several committee members that were unavailable. We have rescheduled our next meeting to take place on May 23rd. Our Arts and Culture Subcommittee met on April 13th. Our agenda items included artist bursaries, recruitment for new teaching artists, potential 2023 cultural capital projects, and potential public art policy amendments. Stratford Youth Centre and Council, excuse me, is preparing for its online auction and spring flea market. Both are key fundraisers for the centre and raise funds for equipment programs and community initiatives. And I would like to remind everyone while we're here that we received an email invitation from Dwayne as councillors that perhaps we wanted to help the youth members with their auction items. So perhaps a challenge to anybody who's listening, Mr. or Councillor Cox and others, we could use our communication skills to get some more items for that online auction. And I think the online auction goes live on May 29th. Okay. Youth members are also actively preparing a lobbying for the crosswalk installation at Bunbury Road. And planning is well underway for the first Cheryl Duffy excuse me, Service Award. I don't know if you guys know the background on that, but that involves two $500 grants for students, youth center members, past or present, who are accepted into a post-secondary institution. So we had a meeting last week or the week before in regards to the kind of the criteria and the description of the awards, and it was very successful. And I believe that that will launch, we have our first application for this year for June 16th or somewhere around there. In regards to spring planning, Stratford and area baseball, soccer, or softball, flag football, and cricket players will be back on their respective fields this week. Just wanted to give a little update. Currently, we have Bunbury Field, Upper McNeil, Lower McNeil, and Kinloch Field open. On Thursday, we plan to open Keppoch and Kinloch fields, and on Friday, the Fullerton's multi-use and the soccer complex fields. Sports courts for tennis, pickleball, and basketball are open around the community, and courts are available on a first-come, first-served basis. Tennis programming and lessons are available at Pondside Park. I also wanted to let you know that Dwayne Pino recently completed a playground inspection course, and Dwayne will be beginning his inspections around town in the next week or currently, yes. Additionally, we are in the process of installing 6 new benches in different areas around the town. There's going to be 3 at Fullerton's Marsh. You'll see 1 installed on Kinloch Road, just kind of on the Kinloch Beach side of the entrance to Fox Meadow, and another on McKinnon Drive. In regards to capital projects, the town is working on several capital projects pertaining to the Recreation, Culture, and Events Department. Projects include a mini baseball, softball field, playground installation, and acquisition of furniture for the Gertrude Cotton Centre. Additional projects will continue throughout the summer. In regards to arts programming, spring classes are underway currently, with most programs operating at full capacity. Registration is now open for Stratford Summer Camp, which runs from July 4th to September 1st. The town is in the midst of hiring a camp supervisor right now, and we'll be hiring camp counselors in the coming weeks. The camp can accommodate 25 to 30 children per week, and it runs over a 9-week period. The town will be offering Intro to Sports, and that's for kids ages 3 to 5 years, and U4 Soccer in July and August. And registration for these programs opens on June 1st. And I believe that concludes our recreation report at this time. We're open to any questions.
Any questions or comments?
I have a question, Jeremy, just on where we're at with the baseball field there at Fulton's Marsh there for the under 4 T-ball. Yeah.
Test. Can you hear me? Yeah. That field is currently with the consultants. CBCL is doing the work on that, so they're in the design process right now, and hope to get that design back in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully mid-June or thereabouts. So we'll start. We'll put out a. Sorry, 1st of June we'll put out a call for contractors to develop that field, and then by it'll hopefully be ready by mid-June or by the end of June, depending on the scope of the work. Yep.
Is that the rally cap? Is that the same as rally cap?
Yeah, it'll be used for kind of introduction to baseball and softball, t-ball, younger groups. It'll probably essentially be used all the way up to U13 on both male and female sports.
Thank you.
This is, we're short on field, so the supplement will help. It helped really well. I mean, I was campaigning and going door to door, and people were asking about it with that age group. T-ball group, it'll facilitate the problem there. Also complimenting on Cotton Park itself. maybe come under infrastructure or recreation, the trees, they replanted the big, large trees down there, and they almost look like an art piece. It's a tree, like they're large trees, and they got three or four branches that were cut, but they replanted them and did a fan. I heard a lot from people walking, it was really, they saved the trees, and it was really good work by our staff, and to pull them back and save them, but it just looked like an art piece there now, so it's, they saved what they could save, right?
Yeah.
It was really good work, and on
And it was
behalf of your
fast,
staff.
too. I know, it was fast, too. I know
Yeah.
2 weeks after Fiona, the trails were open, I think, something like that,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
That was incredible work, and really, yeah, really good work by staff to get that park usable, because I think a lot of people, for their mental health and other reasons, and physical fitness and everything, they needed to get out to, and that by opening those up and having it available, I think it made a big difference for them.
Yeah.
Just wanted to also say that the inaugural, or at least the first race of the season for the Youth Running Series was held at Fullerton's. Certainly, it's not necessarily a town event, but it was very, very well attended. Town staff were present, and so I just want to thank town staff who were involved in assisting with that. And I think it was a very good and well-attended event, and certainly something that's very popular for the community, as well as those outside of our community come visit here in Stratford. So, well
Yeah,
done, everyone.
I was amazed at that. I was at that, and it was, it was a cold morning, and there's still a lot of people, incredible amount of people there. There was quite a crowd, and it's the first race of the season, and it's always at Fullerton's apparently. So that's good for the town, and it's a good tradition to have.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's very popular with parents of children who are my age, and I've never heard anything but great things about Fullerton's in general when it comes to that. So well done to the town staff.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see the park used like that.
I did just want to add, I think I forgot to mention it, in regards to the opening of the fields, when we report on that, that's kind of the field conditions. I think in certain areas, if you're driving past, like on Keppoch Road, you'll still see a barrier where there was areas being used to pile debris from Fiona, et cetera, that there may still be ongoing work to some of that infrastructure and or fencing around fields. Everything is safe and ready to go, but I wanted to kind of just add that point as well.
Yeah, I think that's the case down by the soccer fields too, eh? So that's, I guess that'll come as part of the infrastructure report, when they're going to clean that debris up.
Yeah.
Just a comment, a couple of comments, Your Worship. I'll echo Councillor Glant's comments in relation to the tremendous amount of work that was done over in Cotton Park and continues. There's always people working there. I go through there every day and walking my dog, and it's a beautiful spot. Like you say, it's a great place to recreate. Nice pathway along the waterfront and in through the gardens and fields. It's a wonderful spot. And a lot of work, of course, has been done in a lot of other areas and other parks and trails and such. And I know it's an ongoing process. And I commend the staff for what has been achieved in such a short time so far. I just have a couple of comments in relation to the park. I've had some residents ask me while on the walks why there's no garbage cans along the waterfront trail, and maybe something that staff are intending to do this year. Apparently there hadn't been any in the last couple of years, but there used to be ones prior to. And it's great for dog bags and such to be able to dispose of them on the walk. Another issue is there's a bench. It was affected by Fiona, and it's not really washed out, but it's pretty close. And it's on close to the ponds on the waterfront trail. So I know staff will get to those things, but just to put that on the radar, so to speak. And the other is the ponds themselves. It's a bit of a, they're not large ponds, but it is a natural area there, and it is a habitat for a lot of different species, frogs and ducks and whatnot. And they're in pretty bad shape right now, and I know staff will get to them eventually, but one in particular is a tremendous amount of garbage in it, and both of them are fairly heavily silted. But I just bring those up as comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just quickly comment on those. We are aware of the waterfront park for the past few years with the decommissioning of the wastewater treatment plant and such down there. Much of the trail has been blocked off by fencing, so this year the fencing is down, and we know that people are using that, and we'll soon hopefully have a boardwalk down there, but we are aware of that issue, and we will be adding garbage cans there along with elsewhere around the town. We currently have eight bins that we had commissioned last year through the Reach Foundation that we have set to go out. They just haven't been gotten out in time. And then we do know that Matty Kroll and Katie Saunier, along with our infrastructure department, is working on the various ponds around town because they have been impacted by storms and developments and that sort of thing. So they keep a keen eye on that throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, thank you for that update. The waterfront trail I was referencing there was the one that's in Cotton Park. Okay. Yeah, but I realize there is work underway along what will be their boardwalk, and we're all looking forward to that as time goes on.
And I agree completely with you, Councillor Dowling. It's been a perennial point of mine or subject of mine at budget time, as you know, that I always say that we need more garbage cans, and I guess it's a sort of thing. If you put garbage cans out, you need people to empty them, and then you need to put them in spots where people are going to use them. And I know now we have them at the bus shelters, and I hope we're going to be able to get them maybe by benches or by areas, corners or whatever, where people walk their dogs, and because that is the biggest litter problem we have in the town, is people that walk dogs and then don't have any, for some reason, they don't take their bags with them. They throw them in the ditch or whatever sometimes, and it creates a litter. So we do need more garbage cans, but I know it is a budget item, and it is something that as soon as you put it in, it costs more money, because then you have to pay people to keep it emptied every so often. So
It can't be everywhere, so it is
yeah.
a balancing act, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, good points. Any other comments on Councillor Chandler's report?
I just got a shout out to my neighbor, a couple doors up in my area there, Brielle Masson. She was on the under 16 PEI team that was out in Regina last month. I helped sponsor her. She played 9 games in 6 days, won six games and lost 3. He ended up winning the gold and consolation round and came 9th overall out of 18 teams. So I just want to shout out to Brielle, and
great.
As sports, I concur with her how sports build people, the sportsmanship. So she learned that it was good, and she gave me a shout out. So anyway, she just said this to me a few minutes ago. I hope you're on air. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions on the recreation report? If not, thank you for your report, Councillor. Okay, we'll now move on to finance and technology. I'll ask Councillor Dowling to give his report.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Finance and Technology Committee did not meet in April. However, I do have a brief report from our Director, Kim O'Connell, on items that she and other staff are working on, or events and meetings that they have attended. So I'm just going to read off those quickly. I do have a resolution afterwards, and I'll get into that as time goes on. But the Canada Community Building Fund audit was completed. Staff attended presentations on green municipal funding programs, and they're working continuously on the Fiona disaster claims up to March 31st, 2023, and working with insurance adjusters on Fiona damage to town properties. They attended Shape Stratford information sessions, and they report that 2 water disconnects were done last week, and 1 property is still disconnected. And they are reviewing CMHC affordable funding for development and discussing programs with the province and other municipalities. And work continues on the year-end audit file, as well as updating fees, Schedule A for introduction of new rates, and updating meal and allowance policy. an email poll was sent to Finance Committee members who recommended that the changes be approved, and that will be the resolution pending. The April utility bills are due May 11th, so tomorrow, 2023, and staff remains busy with day-to-day tasks. So barring any questions or comments, Your Worship, that will constitute my report.
Any comments or questions for Councillor Dowling? Oh, proceed with your
Okay.
resolution.
The town income statement and the utility income statements are both attached to the file. Council members have had the opportunity to review those prior to the meeting. So I'll put it out for any comments or questions in relation to those reports. Okay.
The only comment I might have is that we're always pending receipt of provincial or federal funding or grants or whatever, so it's really difficult to, determine our current status with, without that information. So I'm not sure if there's any way of including that, but if not, then I guess we'll have to. Oh, thanks a lot, thanks, Councillor McDonald.
Yeah.
So that's what the only comment I might have is it would be nice to be able to have them made a little more meaningful in the sense that if we knew what we're waiting for or what's coming or whatever, but I know that's a lot of work and it's not something that's absolutely necessary, but it is something that without that information, the income statements and the surplus and that sort of thing, it doesn't really, it's not really as meaningful, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll discuss that later with Director O'Connell and see if there is a way to add anything to those statements to make them a little more.
Yeah, maybe just asterisks with, with the information that's
Sure.
waiting to be added or whatever.
Okay. In regards to the resolution, Your Worship, Resolution FT 010-2023, Travel and Meal Allowance Policy Amendment. Moved by myself, whereas the town of Stratford has a travel and meal allowance policy that has not been updated since 2010, and whereas overall prices have increased in the past 13 years, it was recommended that the policy be amended to keep up with the rising prices as follows. $10 per day for breakfast to $20 per day for breakfast, $15 per day for lunch to $25 per day for lunch, $25 per day for supper to $45 per day for supper. And whereas the local travel was set at $6 a day flat rate fee in 2010, it was recommended that it be increased to $8 a day flat rate. Be it resolved that the attached Travel and Meal Allowance Policy, policy number 2023-FT-01, be hereby adopted. This resolution bears the recommendation of the Finance and Technology Committee as discussed via email poll on May 5th, 2023. And just before we call for the question or secondary, Your Worship, I'll just make comment that this rate increase is consistent with other jurisdictions around the province and the region.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. I need a seconder. Thank you. Any discussion? Yeah, I think the point Councillor Dowling made that this is consistent with the rest of other towns and cities and other jurisdictions is consistent. I think there's principle of fairness. I think this also applies to staff. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
That's the question I had,
Yeah, so if it applies to staff, you can't ask staff to dip into their own pockets when they're on travel status or whatever. So I think that it's important that we make sure that we're in line with our sister communities.
Yeah, and also, Your Worship, as everyone will note in the amended travel meal allowance policy, there is a vehicle that is available for staff and councillor use that's owned by the town, and that's to be the, for staff members in particular, the go-to vehicle, and unless that vehicle is not available, and they're compelled to use their own vehicle, then that higher per day rate would be applicable.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I just had a question. When I was reviewing this in advance of the meeting, the flat rate piece, I know now it's in reference to renting or using the hybrid vehicle, is that right? The flat rate, $6 a day. It's not clear to me what that is about.
It's my understanding that it would be for local travel where a higher degree of mileage wasn't accumulated, and after that the mileage rate would come into play, but I'll let the director respond perhaps with a little more detail.
Sure. The local rate is if you had to go take your own vehicle somewhere around the town, it's just a flat rate fee. There's quite a bit of times that the hybrid's not available for, like some other staff would
Okay.
have it out, and say someone had to go to a meeting in town or something like that, they could use the flat rate
Okay.
charge.
So this is for, instead of mileage, if it's significantly outside the town or whatever, then mileage rates would apply, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and this is for staff, it's not for council?
It's also for, yes, it's just for staff.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And it would be, correct me if I'm wrong, it would be applicable to the lesser of the two. So if you took a trip in proximity of the town and the mileage total was less than the flat rate, then you could claim the flat rate. fee.
The mileage rate, if you do it by mileage, it's more for income tax purposes. The flat rate fee, it's a taxable benefit that goes on your T4. If you claim it by mileage, you don't have to put it on the employee's T4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can do either or.
You can do either or, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll put it to the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. Thank you.
And as I mentioned, Your Worship, the council policy for travel meal allowance has been included, and that is hereby updated to this date to reflect those changes as per the resolution.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for your report, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to the former item 9, which is now item 12, safety services. I'll ask Councillor Jody Jackson to give his report.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start off with a recap of the Safety Services meeting of April 17th. So we had a report from the fire company, a monthly report on fire calls. We'll get into those later. The report was actually in your package for this month, and the numbers we looked at on April 17th were actually the March numbers. So we'll discuss those a little later. I did follow up with the Crossroads Fire Department Board regarding the cost of call-outs for lift assists. I know that was something Councillor Dowling had brought up, and we had discussed previously. And so what that is, for anyone who isn't aware, it's when the fire company is called to help Isle EMS or another provider, Isle EMS, I guess in this case, to help with lifting a patient where they may need an extra help, or it may be someone's not able, one of their paramedics is not able. So the reason why we're talking about it is every time that we do get a call, the Crossroads Fire Department does get a call from that, it's about $600 to $1,000 based on the call-out fee. So Councillor Dowling last month had mentioned that we should discuss that, bring it up at the board meeting, and we did. And so the takeaway from that, the fire department, fire company board is going to discuss it with the PEI Firefighters Association. The firefighters in attendance at the board meeting, full credit to them, it's absolutely something they feel is vital that they do. They see it as a service to the community and that they do not want to stop that. They just want some recognition maybe and for the costs that are incurred. So I think it's a fair question going forward to the through the Firefighter Association, and it's an issue in all fire departments across the province, that especially in what we've been hearing in the western part of the province, where there may not be first responders right away, so they're getting the calls a lot. So this will probably be a topic that will prevail here for a little bit until it's sorted out. But we did bring it forward, and they are going to follow up with their board. We had an update from Citizens on Patrol. They're continuing to recruit new members. They did have a new member sign up, and if anyone else out there is interested, please contact the town for more information. The RCMP were not available that night. We had an accident on the bridge. It was actually a busy day that day with RCMP calls, so they weren't able to attend. And again, we don't have our member here tonight, so we'll may have discussed the stats, but we'll hold the questions for next meeting. We did have an update, follow-up discussion on the E-Watch program. So our committee was hoping, based on our conversation last month at council, that we were going to get a recommendation to further explore the E-Watch camera system, which is in place in Charlottetown, Kensington, I think Summerside, Deputy Mayor, to go forward with that. So what that is, it's a community-supported, business-supported, preventative deterrent kind of measure with cameras throughout the town would be. So we didn't get to a recommendation. The committee feels that we need more information, and I know in discussions with staff, it wasn't something that was on their work plan at the time, so it's not at the top of the list. I'd like to see it moved up to the top of the list. I know it's a passion for myself and for our deputy mayor to see this one through, to further explore, and we have a good handle on the costs and what we need to do. So I'm going to add it to the agenda for next week again, and requesting we move forward, have a motion from the committee to move forward with exploring that with our business community and getting going on it. We also talked about lighting, so just a quick hit here. Maritime Electric's about 90% complete of conversion to LED lights, which is fantastic. There's about 984 out of 1,100 lights in Stratford that have been converted to LED so far. We're already seeing a decrease in consumption costs, and that's just a positive measure all the way around. I'll touch a little bit in Fiona cleanup, and I'm sure in the infrastructure report you may hear a little more, but province is doing roadside pickup for Fiona debris. Just want to remind folks to please make sure it's clearly off the roadway and in manageable size pieces. I have at the end of my road, there's some stumps that are massive and they're right on the edge of the highway. And there's actually a full tree there. I called highways today. If someone hit it, they would dead stop. So I think people are maybe taking a few liberties with where government had suggested neatly piling manageable sized chunks of debris. This is a probably 30 or 40 foot tree and some massive stumps. So, you know, for my neighbor at the end of the road, I'm sorry, but I did call. It's not safe. So just a little bit of a heads up to residents there. So that's the summary of the Safety Services meeting, April 17th. Any questions on that before I move forward?
Just a question there. You talked about, Councillor Jackson, about the assistant paramedics. Do they assist the RCMP in directing traffic to the fire department?
That's a good question. We didn't get into that.
Yeah.
They are there from the firefighters that are on the board and that are around the table there. They are there to assist in whatever way they can.
Yeah, it's a good tool.
It is,
Yeah.
and they feel passionate about serving their community, and they just want to make sure that it's accurately reflected that they do this. And you know, you have a for-profit company that's providing paramedic services. So, you know, if there was some way, and I know government will look at it, and through the Firefighter Association, it'll definitely be brought up and discussed, but it's something that the firefighters definitely want to do. But we can't, you know, there has to be some recognition of the costs that are offloaded onto the fire company. So, and again, with the RCMP, they're passionate about helping any way they can. That's why they are signed up to be firefighters, and we love them dearly for it. And it's, they don't ask, but, you know, there is a cost to it. And the other side of that is if you don't go, you know, who's going to be there? If they, and it's a no-go from the firefighters, but they're never going to not go. But it takes away from training. It may take away from money they have for other things. So hopefully there's a recognition through these discussions that it needs to be addressed to some extent, you know.
Just on that, Councillor Jackson, is there any way of quantifying that, do you think? Or I wonder if you could ask the
the
fire company
amounts?
to quantify it, to get it, put a dollar number on it in
Yeah,
terms of how much time they spend and, you know, what it costs them? And because I think I'd be happy to take it to the provincial government and try to make the argument
Absolutely.
that, you know, there
Yeah.
needs to be compensation for that.
And thank you, Worship. It's a great question. So we know, based on the stats that we get, there's probably 10, 15, 20, maybe in the run of a year that are actually cataloged. Now, we know there are other instances where they're helping out. These are the ones that are actually tracked. And that's saying for Crossroads. And I know in speaking with the firefighters, in other jurisdictions, this happens on a daily basis. And they're dealing with it in the further reaches of the province, like I said, on a daily basis. So I would appreciate on behalf of the firefighter, the Crossroads board, and if your worship, you would bring that, because it's an issue.
Yeah.
And the firefighters in this position see themselves as a vital part of our health system in being that those first responders who can get there, who can lift. It's not just a lift assist. It's in everything they do. You know, there's medical first response and all this stuff and accidents and everything, but they're passionate about that. We can't have fire companies struggling for funds if there was a recognition that, you know, they could be just what they do. They feel recognized by the public. It's just
So
if government could provide a little bit more in recognition of that service.
I guess just so it's well understood, when there is a request for a lift assist, that it does, it's all the firefighters, or as many as,
it is.
it's a whole call out, like it could
Yeah.
be 15, 20 firefighters.
It is.
When really only one or two might be required.
Yeah.
So, but there's no way to change that, because when
No.
a call out is received, everybody's notified and everybody goes. So that's just the way the system works.
You're right, Your Worship, and that they were passionate about that too. It's if you started saying, well, we're only going to send a few, then those few dwindle off, and you're not there
Yep.
when they need you.
Yep.
So it continues to be, we're going to go, and if we're not needed, we're going to come back, and it's not about them, you know, kind of running up any numbers. It's just they want to be there to help, whether it's one or two or it's a dozen. So I would appreciate if in your conversations.
They get their call out, and
They get their call out,
the
yeah.
cost of the vehicles going, and
Yeah.
and
And
plus
that's
the
where they say
disruption
it's-
to their lives. I mean,
Yeah.
the time that's actually spent is
Exactly.
is
So they're
significant.
saying about 600 to 1,000 for each call based on the number that go out.
So
and the
15 or
cost.
20 a year, that's
Yeah.
a fair
It
bit of
is,
money, yeah.
But they are passionate about doing it, and so yeah, it'd be great if you're in any discussions, you could.
And
bring
plus
that.
all the other things they do that's not really included in terms of cleaning up after motor vehicle accidents. I guess the tow truck drivers used to do that, or the towing companies used to do that, and now they don't do that.
No,
And
there's a
so
lot of-
rather than leave, you know, dangerous debris on the road, they'll stay to clean it up, and
Yeah.
and that's also a
It is.
cost.
And we ask a lot of our volunteer firefighters, so I think, you know, in recognition of that, it'd be nice if we can.
Like a couple weeks ago, I noticed a car accident on the bridge and how everybody acted. I drove by it and 2 airbags deployed, everything was going south, and the fire department arrived, the RCMP arrived, and had to work together as a team. And with the bridge, you got to quicker the better, right?
Yeah.
And people don't realize it's a crime scene. You know, something happened, somebody's at fault, and they got to, you know, look through the paperwork and so on, and investigation part of it, and they need more bodies there for themselves.
Right.
Just a quick question here. I had some people actually ask me about this, where the service center is located now. Of course, there's going to be some complaints. You got Briar Jones right across the street from there. You got a lot of residential people on the Stratford Road and in that area. And some people have been just questioning, like, when they're coming out with the sirens blaring, and, you know, it's 11 o'clock at night, and, you know, there's obviously not a lot of people on the Stratford Road or something at the time, and they're just kind of wondering, when do you need to put the sirens on, whatever, when people are trying to sleep, and that's just what you hear, right? So people have stopped and asked this question, and I didn't know the answer to that, but obviously it goes with safety and everything else, right?
Yeah.
So, but I thought I'd just ask that to you on behalf of some people that approached.
And in this, I would probably defer to Deputy Mayor as being a police officer before, but they're trained, they don't know what they're getting to on any call. They could, you know, they gotta get there fast, they gotta get there safely, if it's an insurance.
Liability. You gotta
Yeah,
decide.
liability.
It's
So
liability.
Right,
it's better to err on the side of
yeah.
being,
Yeah.
you know,
Like the paramedics have their always, it's siren going at all times, they gotta have it going. If they don't have it going, there's liability
Right.
issue.
yeah.
Right.
And it's positioned in a place where, I mean, there is an impact on some residents, but it's, you know, you get the business park, the Mason Road area kind of at the end there. Like it's, you're probably not going to find a better place in the town for that anyway,
No,
with access
exactly.
and those things. So it is, I do hear them every day in my house, but I thank goodness every day that I live 5 minutes from the fire company. And,
Right.
and you know, for that reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's their discretion. And,
Yeah,
and
I just bringing out the point
standards
that,
for
that
it.
was asked to me, and I think I knew the answer anyway, but I thought I'd just bring
Yeah.
it forth.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Last thing on the fire company, we did have a good discussion at our last fire company meeting around just the general growth projections around the town and what that means for fire service and what that means for equipment. And I know they're looking in the coming years for another truck to replace kind of aging ones there. And you know, there's going to be a greater discussion with them around their requirements and the need of the town. It's not a today thing, but it probably shouldn't take too long before we start thinking about that. We're talking about 12-story buildings. We're talking about a lot of a different looking Stratford. So I think it's important that we consider that and in what their needs are and keep that kind of line of communication open when we start considering what Stratford's going to look like in 5, 10, 15 years. So that's something they wanted to kind of make clear too. So that's my safety services meeting report. Any other questions before I move quickly on?
I apologize, Councillor Jackson, and I know we don't have the representative here. Would I be able to ask 2 questions that can be passed along
Sure.
in regards to the RCMP
Yep,
reports?
sure.
One is that I wanted to ask it last month, but I don't think we had someone here last month.
No.
The other occurrence section that's listed in reports, there's still a section where other isn't clear, there's no clarity. So other occurrences make up, I'm trying to recall, maybe 29% of incidents, and then there's a breakdown some. So I'd love clarity on that.
Sure.
And then the second question is for Corporal Weatherby and/or town staff. When we have the report of traffic collisions and we can see the streets where they've occurred, do we have a running month by month or year over year accumulation of those things? And if so, do we have more detailed information? For example, if we saw last month there were 3 collisions on Kinloch Road, do we ever hammer down to know what section of Kinloch Road or whatever road those are occurring on to see if there's patterns or trends, and that we could extrapolate that information and use it in the future when we are approaching other partners in regards to infrastructure and/or changes in our roads and/or sidewalks?
It's a great question. I would defer to the CAO, but we get some anecdotal evidence from people talking about, you know, you're seeing more incidents here or there, but it's nice if they would have a tally.
I'm sure we can get that information from them. I do believe they share that information with the Department of Transportation
Okay.
on a regular basis because they do look at that information with regard to safety of intersections and such. So especially if they are planning on any upgrades within the town with certain intersections. So, but I can ask that question. I just wanted to say, I don't know if it was mentioned that Corporal Weatherby would have been here tonight, but he's not feeling well. And the other person that he was going to get to represent him actually had another engagement. So that's why
Yeah.
they're not here tonight.
Thank you. And again, like to the last safety service meeting, our officer that was supposed to be there was also tied up in the bridge. There were 2 incidents on the bridge that day.
Yes.
One right after another, both very serious. So we do thank them for being here when they can be here, but understand if they need to be out doing police business, that's where they should be. So thanks for that. So the RCMP report, the numbers are in your package. We have a couple of takeaway questions from Councillor Chandler. So I'm not a police officer, and I don't know that I can speak to any more of these, but the numbers are there. We'll have a good chat with Corporal Weatherby next time he's back. But if there's anything from those stats that you want me to dig in a little more with Corporal Weatherby, please pass them along. Does that sound okay for now, since we don't have them here? So moving on, the Humane Society report, it's fairly quiet again on the Humane Society report. We'll continue with patrol, or let me see here. The one thing I do want to highlight in here, and I want to thank Wendy for the post that just went out around making sure that residents are not feeding the wildlife. I know this was something that was brought up to me at the doors around residents thinking they're doing a service to the wildlife and feeding them, and then we know, as much as our heart breaks for them, that we shouldn't be doing it, especially certain types of rodents and different things like that. So let's let them be. I appreciate the social media post. But again, if there's any issues with infestations or anything like that, let's Fish and Wildlife. There's lots of folks that we can get on the case, but let's not try to add to it.
There's one thing there, the Humane Society, as a dog owner.
Yep.
I noticed when the doggy bags, people pick up their litter and leave the bag on the trail.
Yeah.
Fuller's Marsh and Cotton Park. Like, I don't know how we figure pick them up and put them in a garbage can.
We have lots of waste receptacles like
A lot of
that's
people,
yeah.
it's sort of, they do the right thing and then all of a sudden leave it there. It's just frustrating. And they're responsible dog owners or everything else, but they're still leaving the package there, right?
I think a lot of them. I mean, there are two different kind of baggies. I have two golden retrievers at home. Some are compostable and some aren't.
Yeah.
Some think they're doing the right thing by leaving it there, but it's obviously not fun in the dusk to step in a bag of it. So we do have lots of waste receptacles. So if they're not out, they will be out. Wendy, if you want to.
No, I was just going to say, actually, according to Waste Watch PEI, none of the bags are actually compostable, even if they say
They
that.
go in the waste.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So everything, all of it goes in waste every time.
All right. So maybe we'll task you with a reminder on that. Maybe a little.
We will continue to, yeah, that's one of
on-
our regular ones too, but
on
yeah,
that.
it's a good time of year for a reminder.
Great. Thank you. Any questions anymore on the Humane Society here? We'll move to transit if that's okay.
Just wanted to say about the Humane Society, I think it's sort of like electricity. They do a great job, and I like the fact they include community patrols.
Yes.
And that indicates, I think that's probably the number of working days in a month is around 22 days, working days in a month. And so that's pretty significant, the fact that they're doing 23
Yeah,
patrols.
and it speaks to the fact that we're not speaking about issues, that they're doing a good job out there, and we have some responsible pet owners in the town, and other than picking up their pet waste, we don't have a lot to complain about, so.
Yeah, we get good value for our money, I think, with that,
We
with that
do.
contract, yeah.
Absolutely. So looking at the transit, numbers remain strong. I know I say this every month, but they are remaining strong. March and April of this year have been the best March and April we ever had by a significant margin. It's great to see. 2 new transit runs at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. started on April 24th. So that is nice. That's based on feedback from our ridership and Jeremy and his staff working, and your worship with the powers that be to make those happen. So we think it's great, and if we can continue to show good ridership, we'll continue to see that expand where we can. Any questions on transit? Trying to cognizant of the time here. So just to head back to the fire company, our stats are in the package. We do have a meeting next week on Monday. They had 11 calls in March, the majority are in Stratford. We did talk with the MVA, some fire alarms with no fire. One assist with the city in the water rescue. I think that was the same day as our safety services meeting, and a dumpster fire. I was going to make a joke about that, but I won't. But again,
Can only imagine.
not pointing at folks across the bridge, but I did. But I do want to thank our fire company for their continued service and really getting to be around that table, the passion on of the folks that are there, and they do need more recruits. If you are considering it, drop by on Tuesday nights. I don't know myself if I could handle the stuff that they do, but there are people out there that have the stomach and the wherewithal to do what they're doing. It's a fantastic service, and again, they're all volunteers, so we're very fortunate to have them all. One last thing, I did receive a call from this is on the safety side, a resident on Clifton Road who passed on concerns from a few residents in that area, and it's really with respect to traffic coming out of Kelly Heights at the high traffic hours. They're not able to go left towards Cotton Park. So what they're doing is taking a right, and they're going down East River and through Clifton, and going fairly fast in a very quiet neighborhood to kind of get around that, not being able to get left. So the residents are concerned with the higher volume of traffic there, and it is, you know, they'd love to see it be a one-way, Clifton being a one-way. Part of it is a dead end on the outdoor rink end of it, but, you know, that's one of the suggestions from the residents. Now, doing that might just move it down to the next street, going over. So just if there was something, Jeremy, if there's any, if we're talking to Corporal Weatherby, I know it's a natural thing for folks to try to find an easier route, but they are seeing the impacts of higher traffic in that area for sure. And just concerned about speed, volume and speed. Any questions on?
Just a small point about
Sure.
the fire department. In Crossroads in Stratford, they're still averaging 4 calls a month where there's no fire. That's where smoke alarms go off or whatever. I think we should remember in April there's a real big push that's put on every year to replace your batteries and your smoke detectors, and that's still alarming when we're averaging 4 calls. That's 1 a week. That's a lot of time. It's a lot of energy. That's a lot of money. You know, and you're a volunteer fireman, or you know you're involved with the fire department. You do get anxious when you get on the truck and you're heading towards the fire, because you don't know if it's someone you know or and how bad it can be, especially this time of year when there's you know, the fire index is quite high. So you know, I think we all have to be a little more diligent and make sure we change our smoke detectors, and you know, and just be so less calls, because if they're out going to a situation that's not a fire and a real fire comes in, that caused a delay to a fire that they're really needed at.
Yeah, that's right. We all have our part. I would, you know, like I said before, no matter what the call is, they are going full speed out to try to do it. They're probably happy to get there and see it be nothing. But again, we could save them those calls and those call outs for when they're really needed. So good point. And I know that's something we share too in social media. We piggyback a lot of their things. So good point, Councillor. So if there's any other questions on my report, we'll move on to the resolution.
Yep, please proceed.
Okay. Let's see here. So resolution SS 003-2023, Noise and Nuisance Bylaw Amendment, second reading. Whereas provincial legislation for the Highway Traffic Act was revised in May 2022 to modify the clause previously stating that a person who is riding bicycles shall not ride on a sidewalk, to allow the council of a municipality having the jurisdiction over a sidewalk to impose a bylaw, to allow riding or use of bicycles by children on a sidewalk or any portion of a sidewalk. And whereas the Act defines children as persons 12 years of age or under, be it resolved that the attached bylaw number 30C, a bylaw to amend the noise and nuisance bylaw number 30, be hereby read and approved a second time. And this, I just scrolled too fast, sorry. Everything was going too good there.
Yeah, we had first reading last month.
Yeah, first reading. So again, this is, so moved.
So moved. Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? We passed first reading last month.
This is just to allow children under 12 and under to use the sidewalks for bicycles. Great, and we're allowed to do that.
Okay, I'll call a question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Motion carried.
Thank you, Worship. So we'll move on to adoption. SS 004-2023, Noise and Nuisance Bylaw Amendment, adoption. Whereas Council read and approved the attached bylaw amendment 30-C, a bylaw to amend the noise and nuisance bylaw number 30 for the first time on April 12, 2023. And whereas Council read and approved the attached bylaw amendment 30-C, a bylaw to amend the noise and nuisance bylaw number 30 for a second time on May 10, 2023. Be it resolved that the attached bylaw amendment, bylaw number 30-C, a bylaw to amend the noise and nuisance bylaw number 30, be hereby adopted, and that the Mayor and Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to affix their signatures and corporate seal of the town thereto, and to be formally declared the said bylaw passed. So moved.
Seconder? Thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. So that bylaw is now as soon as we put the signatures and the corporate seal, that bylaw will be in effect.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's my report.
Oh, thank you for your report.
Just have a quick question, Steve, I think you talked about it, Worship. I know I see, me and Jody received a couple complaints in our area about speeding, and the RCP acted on it. It was like on Mason Road and Bunbury Road, we talked about it, some of the residents, and I coming to a meeting tonight, they're parked on Mason Road doing stationary radar. It was nice to see, and with some of the tributes, I'd like to see that Corporal Weatherby gets, I think we talked about breaking it down, speeding infractions in the area. Remember we talked about if he took it to the table and sort of he contributes, like he acknowledges he does great work. That's what I want to,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I think
I
that's,
just want to see the areas that I can go back to my residents and say, you know what I mean?
yeah,
If-
yeah, I know what you're
if
saying,
we get
yeah.
complaints from Mason, Bunbury Road, and said, well, he wrote so many tickets. I don't know if we can break it down that way. We talked about it earlier, but breaking down occurrences.
In certain areas, yeah, yeah.
So I just want to give the recognition that,
Yeah.
job well done, right? And,
Yeah.
and I know he's not here tonight to ask him that, but some of the complaints I had, he acted on them right away. It's great.
Yeah.
You know.
Maybe we could ask for, if that's possible,
You know what I mean?
to give
Yeah.
that, where the tickets are written. I think that might also already be captured, so if that's possible.
They have speeding, there are 8 tickets in other areas, but.
We do have, there was a map in the package which
Yeah.
highlighted all the areas, so that is, it's a lot more information than we used to get.
Yeah. We've been asking for that information for a while, and actually there was a meeting with federal and provincial and RCMP representatives today where we did talk about getting more information on targeted enforcement. So we're working on that, but sometimes they can release that information, other times they can't, but that's stuff that we said that council is looking for so that they're able to go back to the residents and indicate that there is targeted enforcement going on in certain areas, so.
Yeah, it's always after the fact that we're looking for. We're not looking for anything ahead of time.
Correct,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, thank you.
And you know, if you look at the statistics, the first 4 months, we've had 24 speeding violations. Last year, we had 194. So we're on pace really for 72, when last year we had 194, and in 2021, we had 173. So to bring it down under 100 is quite remarkable.
And if I may ask that, I was done, sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
It was just pointed out to me that that information, I believe, is in your package.
Yeah, that's the one I was speaking to.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of it's along the main
Okay,
road.
so those were the offenses took place, so that information is provided.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So just, Your Worship, just for my own notes here, I did have some questions around the RCMP report. I know there were the reference to mischief in there, and a high number of those, the vast majority, had insufficient evidence to proceed. I was hoping to ask Corporal Weatherby if that was indeed with respect to the can throwing incidents or not. I think they were considering mischief around that, but
Yeah, there's 12 counts there.
yeah, there were 15 counts and 12 or 11 or 12 were had insufficient evidence to proceed. So I'm a little, just curious as to which
Okay.
ones those were. So maybe just for the minutes, we'll just make sure. I made a note, but we'll bring that back for Corporal Weatherby maybe on Monday if we get a chance to talk to him. And I had one other item, but I think we'll bring that up in infrastructure. It's more appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your report. Any other comments or questions for Councillor Jackson? Okay, thanks for your report. And we'll now move on to item number 13, infrastructure. I'll ask Deputy Mayor Gallant to give his report.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. We'll start with Hurricane Fiona. Tree debris cleanup continues with the province having removed all the debris from the stockpile on Keppick Road and continue to remove debris from the stockpile on Myrtle Street. The town continues efforts of trail maintenance to repair damage caused by machinery on the trails during the cleanup efforts. The town's contractor has been returned to some areas for ground reinstatement and further assessment of leaning trees. Uprooted stumps still have to be removed in some areas. Construction of the multi-purpose path along Kenrock Road is proceeding now. It has begun with an anticipated to be completed by the end of June. The 8-foot wide paved trail will extend from J.K. Beauty Lane to the Transcan Highway intersection, improving the connectivity of active transportation in the busy area. 3 bids were received from the construction work on the community campus. A resolution will be read tonight to recommend awarding the contract to the low bidder, Island Coastal Services Limited. Work is expected to begin in the coming weeks.
2 bids were submitted for the upgrades to the Bunbury Sewage Lift Station. Both bids were significantly over the approved budget. We are working with the consultant to determine the best option to move forward, which may involve reducing the scope of work or sourcing some materials to ourselves. The information will be brought to the committee at this month's meeting for discussion and recommendation. The tender for upgrades to the Curry Sewage Lift Station closed on May 4th. The results will be taken to the committee at this month's meeting for discussion and recommendation. As we wait to hear, we are successful in obtaining the provincial active transfer fund for the water gathering and event space. The drawings are being finalized for tendering as soon as we hear. Greater area continue with the design of new water reservoir and expect to begin construction later in the spring. A tender has been issued for the pavement of Trans-Canada Highway Trail from Mason Road to Fullan's Park, and we close on May 10th. Infrastructure staff have been busy with the following: ongoing maintenance of town properties and trails, property grounds, cleanup continues, sidewalks, trails have been swept clean of winter sanding. Interviews for summer positions are being held with few positions already filled. Bylaw complaints and investigations are ongoing and increasing as they tend to do this time of year, even more as a result of Fiona damage. Data collection underway for review of temporary speed hump installation. 4 requests have been received to date. Tender for the purchase of electric vehicle was issued with no bid submitted. Sewer and water infrastructure maintenance inspections ongoing on a daily basis. All sewer lift stations have been cleaned, and damage to manhole covers and water valve boxes from the snow plows is being repaired as well. Water and sewer inspections and water turn-ons for new development is ongoing. During the month of April, there were no sewer or water emergency or interruptions. And this report is submitted by Jeannie Woodard, Director of Infrastructure.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Just one question, Councillor Glant, in relation to the tender for the electric vehicle. I'm wondering, is it unusual that no bids be received, and what is the process going forward?
Jeannie, you can answer that, or the CEO, Mr. Crosby, can.
I'll answer the best as I can. It seems to be unusual that we don't get any bids. We actually had this in our budget last year and tendered and did not receive bids. We were hopeful. We increased the budget this year, and we had contacted some of the dealerships and thought we were going to get some interest in it. So we were disappointed to not have anything come in the door. I think the supply is not there, and to commit to a price is difficult for the suppliers and the dealers right now. So moving forward, I'm not really certain what we're going to do. We're going to have to discuss that and come up with a better plan.
I'm just wondering, just along those lines, I'm not entirely familiar with the process of electrification of existing vehicles, but I was wondering if that had been looked into in any capacity, not purchasing a
Of converting
full electric,
existing?
Processed vehicle, but converting a vehicle to electric?
We have not done that research. I don't know what the technology is like or how the costs would compare for that. Certainly something we can look into for sure.
We do have a company in the business park that does that with older Toyota Corollas, I believe. So that may be an option. I don't know how much inventory they may have or how long that takes, but it may be nice. If we don't have any uptake from the businesses out there, that we could at least explore that. The other thing, have we I know the market for used electric vehicles is pretty much the same as for new ones. The weight on new ones is tough, and I imagine it would be hard to pin down a price, but is that something, a good used electric car would still be, a good option for us if possible. I've had 2 and since moved on, but they were excellent. They really were.
I think it's an option we can consider. Our tenders to date have been for new vehicles, but maybe that is the next step, is to consider acquiring a used vehicle.
And there may even be, if not mistaken, and there could be 2 businesses in Stratford. One, I believe, converts vehicles to small trucks, which might be beneficial depending on what the usage is. And I believe there's another one off the Stratford Road, or off the highway, Trans-Canada Highway, And I'm not sure what, again, I'm not advocating any businesses over the other, but I'm not sure what they do or how they do it, but I do pass by and see the signage, and it leads me to believe that they take vehicles and electrify them. Anyway, it's just something
I'm not
worth
familiar
looking
with the
into.
business on Stratford Road. A few of us did tour the facility on Myrtle Street. And they do indeed convert a Toyota Corolla into a small pickup truck. They're only a two-seater, so it's a little limited to what we might, we were looking to source out a vehicle that could accommodate 4 to 5 people. But I think we should be considering supporting that business at some point in our budgeting for certain. I mean, they're a small pickup truck. We would certainly get good use out of it, and they are feasible. I was quite surprised with the cost of them, so.
Question?
Go ahead.
No, it's just, Councillor Gallan's a great question, and I hope those answers are.
We'd like to support, and we always do, in accordance with our policy, local businesses whenever possible. And it'd be nice to see a car dealership open up in Stratford, and I'm sure there will be not too distant in the future, given our population and proximity to surrounding areas, including Charlottetown. So, yeah.
There was an electric vehicle business here. I think, was it called All EV, or they just closed, I don't know, within the last few months? And I'm not certain of what.
We've had
Oh,
two
before
car
few.
dealerships here, and both have left the community, so, yeah. So, there's, yeah,
It was around supply.
Yeah, exactly.
LEV
There's
get
challenges.
purchased by
yeah.
larger steel, who would sell them at their own
Yeah.
spot, and so, yeah, so that.
And the other one was-
The Genie plant was all.
The other one was the same. As I understand it, the business in the company in the business park does not have stock yet. They're still working on their protocols. And I know Summerside is already first in line for the first one off because they started their business there and they've moved to Stratford since. But Summerside has the first one when it comes off, and I believe there's a bit of a waiting list. I'm not sure how long that is or what their timeline is, but it certainly wouldn't solve anything in the immediate future for us.
Can I ask one question? Jeannie, just for clarity, you said that there was no one responded to the
RFP.
RFP last year?
Correct.
Or this year?
Right.
So if nothing shifts, then that would just be moved, like, to next year? Or,
We can actually have discussions and consider whether we look at sourcing out a used vehicle and put it back out, just changing the specifications in the tender and
Yeah.
see if we can get interest that way.
yeah, okay, thank you.
And Jeannie, that was for a car?
Yes.
'Cause I think there's been some access to some F-150 Lightnings around, substantially more money, probably near double what the cost of a car would be, but that may be easier to get our hands on, may be useful for the town to have that. But yeah, it's a year and a half on a lot of those.
We were essentially, our specifications were sort of in line with the hybrid that we have now, the car that we have. So we were just looking for something similar in a full electric vehicle.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, unrelated to that, your worship. And this, I was going to bring it up in safety services, but I'll bring it up in infrastructure. Continue to get, receive emails and calls from folks from Rosebank Road about active transportation, sidewalk type infrastructure. So they, in speaking to them, it's been a longstanding issue. Speed is an issue. Safety for pedestrians is an issue. A good point that they did make was around access to transit. So the closest transit to Rosebank Road is at the top up on Catholic Road. So I think that should maybe, as we get hopefully the results of the active transportation study, that this may, if that's not kind of top of the list there, I think we should consider that as one of the factors to try to get folks closer to the transit. If that something like that assists them to get to transit, I think that would help bolster our numbers for transit. It would help solve an issue in that area, a long-standing issue around pedestrian safety and speed. So I know I thank Councillor Chandler for passing this on, and I did say I would bring it up. I think eagerly await that report. This may not be the top, but I will advocate for it to be moved up substantially because of the continued concerns there, and this being a good point, but trying to get to the transit. I know we're doing that with the connection to Reeves. That was a gravel trail there that is, I think, is being paved, maybe even paved right now. That makes a lot of sense to help to service that community so they can get to Mason Road to get on transit. So I think we got to keep that in mind and make sure that that is, if need be, I will advocate for it to be escalated up the priority list.
Thank you for that. And I know we've brought it up several times, but I continue to get correspondence from residents in that area, and they are expressing their frustration because it's been a long-standing concern. So any information or concrete information that we could give would be helpful. And I think a lot of this is in managing their expectations, and there's room for improvement in that.
And it is a budget item, so we do need to really, if we're going to do it, we would look at next year. And I guess one of the considerations in the transit survey, if I'm not mistaken, is, or the transit study, or the active transportation study, is that distance from transit. And so look forward to that report. I think that's going to answer a lot of questions for us. And I think it was the intention to really depoliticize the whole idea of where we put sidewalks and active transportation trails. So we really need to think about how we approach this so that that's not a consideration, that it is something that is, that we put the active transportation trails in the area where they're most needed and where there's the most risk and where the where access to transit is, access to transit is most difficult. And I think if those things are all considered in the comparison of the different areas of town, we will have a good feeling or a good basis for deciding on where we spend our money on active transportation.
Yes, and if I could just add to that, and I've pointed it out before, when it comes to Rosebank Road and the residents that live on the water side of Keppoch Road, we have not given them a safe way to even cross the road to get to the sidewalk that exists along Keppoch, right?
Yeah,
so
and that's another consideration that we really need to.
It's two-tiered. So they're there and they can't safely leave their neighborhood on foot.
Yep. No, that's a good point.
Yeah, and respectfully, Your Worship, like the most recent addition to the Greenway subdivision, while great, there's a lot more people served. I would have to venture off Rosebank than those in that subdivision. So I know we're trying to depoliticize this, but it's been a long haul, and I think it's, regardless of who are in these chairs, it's been brought up several times. There is frustration out there, so all we can do as their representatives and former representative is bring it up and make sure that their voice are heard. And if it, if it's unpopular with some, it's unfortunate, but there are several reasons beyond the political for this to get done. So
Absolutely.
I'm going to keep talking.
And I hope those are going to be considered in the report.
Until it's done, yeah.
That's what I'm hoping, is that the report will coincide with where the areas of concern, or the biggest areas of concern are. I'm hoping that will be the situation or the result of the study.
Thank you, Worship.
Yeah,
Just
thank you.
for clarification, Your Worship, maybe in packages, and I hadn't noticed it, but in relation to processes for selection of work, whether it be active transportation or whether it be sidewalk, lighting, etc., I'm assuming there's a specific criteria that is followed by staff whereby they essentially wind up with an end score or a rating in relation to each of the areas where it's deemed, or there have been requests for improvements, or it's been deemed by staff necessary to implement improvements. And then that would bring us from a budget to budget to budget consideration each year as to what we're contributing, say, for an active transportation length or link, as it were. and then we would be able to go by those scorings. That doesn't necessarily mean that once something's scored, say as a 5 versus a 4.5, that in the following year, due to increase in residential numbers and such, that the 4.5 would then become 5 as well, whatever the ranking might be. I'm just wondering if there is, and perhaps the director can answer that, is there is a ranking type process in place so that we could even look ahead if we get a call from residents to say, here's my area, here's what I'm looking for. We could tell them, listen, you're ranked second, or you're ranked fifth, or you're ranked first. You know, that still depends on what is approved from a budget perspective each year for that particular type of work. But at least residents would know where they stand in that. But anyway, I'm not sure what's in existence in that regard.
So the update that we're currently working on for the active transportation master plan is all about that. The consultant Upland are considering all kinds of factors so that they can come up with a plan for us that will prioritize where the needs are for specific infrastructure, or whether it be more transit and that kind of thing. But those are all the things they are considering, and currently working on the draft plan that should be presented, and we'll have a public consultation the second week of June, I believe. So what we are hoping to get out of this is that guidance. It's that plan, or that map, I suppose, of where they've identified the top priority of where we should be putting more sidewalks in, or more trails in, or more transit routes in. So yes, we are certainly hoping to get that, and we're all eagerly waiting for this report to see what that's going to look like. And moving forward in budgeting, yes, we would be using that document and have that, as you say, we could let folks know that you've been noted as third priority on the list. So, in 3 years' time, we're hoping to get that project underway.
And when do we expect that active transportation report?
So the draft is going to be presented the second week of June.
Second week of June?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, forward to that.
One last question I had, not to hammer this down, but they are using their public engagement strategies, right?
Yes.
To gather information.
Yes.
And they've presented us with that kind of first review, like of what's kind of.
What we heard report?
What we heard
Yes.
report.
Yes.
So in that instance, if the folks that participated in that targeted or focus group, that we were here for, didn't bring up Rosebank Road, or their pop-up sessions didn't engage with specific areas, then those areas would not necessarily have been highlighted. However, correspondence would show differently over the years. So is that piece factored in that?
So
as well?
they have had discussions with staff as well, so we're providing that input. They're working with our CMP data with the Department of Transportation, so any data out there that would highlight those issues on Rosebank Road, they will have and will be incorporated. Whether or not they've heard directly from the residents, they would have that information to pull into their review.
Thank you for your clarification.
You're welcome.
And they would have access to the speed sign data that would be available with the
Correct.
number of percentile that are 85%, that the average or the speed of 85 percentile of the traffic. So that
Perfect.
would contribute to whatever the equation or algorithm is that would compute the level of risk.
Yes, no, I understand. I think sometimes when it comes to engagement, the information we're getting is only representing the people that participated. So
Yeah,
just
in order to
thank
be
you.
truly representative, it really needs to come from a lot of different
Sources.
corroborating
Yep.
sources. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, if that was happening in my area, you put in the traffic calming measures, you have your sidewalk, or you use the option of your sidewalk, and then you have your data collection, and then you have the RCMP there enforcing the speeders, and then the speed hump policy, they probably qualify for that. Put some speed humps in it.
I think there usually are speed humps put in.
Yeah.
There usually are speed humps put in every
is
summer
there?
on the
Okay.
Rosebank
That's
Road.
been one of the I guess, somewhat successful measures, but that's, again, there's vehicle speeding and there's pedestrian safety.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the speed humps aren't helping that. And if they have to walk from the bottom of Rosebank all the way to the top to get to Keppick Road to get to the transit, on a busy day with cars that are speeding, it's dangerous, and so that's,
Yeah.
I think that's a factor among all these factors, and that's why we have to make a decision on our priorities as a group, based on the information we have. And I look forward to us doing that.
And I will say this, seeing from that, I just went and reviewed the RCMP report that shows the geographical targeted areas for the ticketing. And what I could see, just without having really any skills to read that, is it looks like the majority of the tickets were issued on the Trans-Canada. So that would be areas that they are moving on all the time. And there's targeted ticketing on Mason Road, and that's likely because of your call. I'm making assumptions, but I can see that on the periphery of other areas, there's not those
There
tickets
has been a
existing.
noticeable increase in RCMP traffic on Rosebank as well.
Okay,
Again, to Corporal Weatherby, he has been terrific to respond. He's only one officer, but he's taken our recommendations and he's done that. There's still issues. It still needs to be fixed, but he's gaining more intel, I guess, on all the things. So we have the report, we have all of these different bits of evidence, and then put it all together, and then hopefully we get to a point where we can determine.
That's exactly the approach, yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you. Okay, we do have a resolution here, so I'll ask Deputy Mayor to move that resolution.
Yep. Number IN C004, 2023, Community Campus Site Servicing. Moved by myself, Deputy Mayor Gallant. Whereas 3 tenders were received on April 18, 2023 for the construction of the Community Campus Site Servicing Project, which consists of construction of the main road to span from Bunbury Road to Hollis Avenue, and a shorter section extended midway through the campus toward Mason Road for a future connection. Sewer, water, and storm systems, underground electrical, and lantern-style light fixtures, and a 3-meter wide asphalt trail along the roads. The intended results are as follows. Island Coastal Services, $9,987,105.46. Birch Hill Construction Limited, $13,964,730. Chapman Brothers Construction Limit, $15,820,929.30. And whereas part of the funding, there are plans for the construction of a 100 kilowatt solar array on the campus. This will be tendered separately later this year. So whereas funding for the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program in the amount of $10,258,046.80 has been obtained, and the capital budget amount approved for the construction and site supervision of the complete community campus project is $15,064,724. And whereas the engineering, construction management, and inspection fees for the complete community campus project is estimated to be $78,400, excluding HST, for an estimated project total of $10,065,505.50, excluding HST, with the remaining budget value at $4,999,218.54 to complete the solar array portion of the project. Being it resolved, the construction of community campus site service being awarded Island Coastal Service Limit in the amount of $9,987,105.46, HST excluded. This resolution bears the recommendation of the Infrastructure Committee via an email poll conducted on April 23rd, 2023.
Okay, so that's been moved by Deputy Mayor Gallant. Do I have a seconder?
Your Worship.
Thank you. All right, discussion. Any discussion? Anything? I think it's quite clear that the low bidder is Island Coastal, and that's what's being recommended. Any comments or questions?
Just excited to see that we're going to.
I do find alarming the discrepancy in the bids. I just wonder, what is your, and I guess every business has their own way of coming with numbers, but when there's like almost $6 million between one and the other, it just to me, I just don't understand that. I'm kind of new with this, I guess, so I just found the discrepancy. I expect them to be within a couple $1 million of each kind of thing.
Yep. It's hard to really know what the bids are going to come in at these days, but one of the bigger factors on the discrepancy is the schedule that they proposed. Island Coastal Services schedule was twice as long as the other bid that was higher, so it was half of the amount of time. So clearly, they were going to have more resources on the project, which obviously puts the price up. So that's
Right.
certainly one area to explain the
That's good to
discrepancy.
know.
Yeah.
Never knew that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Just on the solar array, I'm excited to see that. Nice that we still have a healthy budget for that. We got 12 kilowatts at home, and it's the best thing we ever did. So 100 will go a long ways.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. Okay. Thank you for your report, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship.
We'll now move to Committee of the Whole. We have a couple of resolutions here, and one has to do with the RCMP, so I'll ask Chair of the Safety Services Committee, Councillor Jody Jackson, to read that, to move that resolution, and I'll ask Councillor Dowling to move the second resolution as it has to do with administration. So I'll go ahead,
Thank you,
Councillor
Worship.
Jackson.
So Resolution CW 010-2023, prioritizing municipal input in future RCMP contract policing decisions. Whereas the Government of Canada has made the decision in the 2023 budget to make municipalities responsible for all retroactive costs stemming from the latest RCMP collective bargaining agreement. And whereas these extraordinary one-time costs, which in some jurisdictions amounts to millions of dollars, will cause significant hardship for communities and residents across the country, and were negotiated without meaningful consultations or a seat at the table for the municipalities responsible for paying the bill. And whereas municipal governments are already paying a growing share of policing costs, but unlike the other orders of government, cannot run deficits to spread out the impact of these extraordinary one-time sums and have limited revenue tools. And whereas local governments will now be forced to make difficult decisions that will impact residents, such as cutting essential services, reducing policing levels, raising property taxes significantly, and or canceling work or on local infrastructure at a time when Canadians' concerns about community safety and the cost of living are already rising. And whereas going forward, it is critical that municipalities be proactively engaged in any forthcoming processes related to contract policing to prevent this from occurring again. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Stratford, Prince Edward Island, joins the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in calling on the federal government to commit to ensuring that local governments are meaningfully consulted, fully informed, and at the table on issues related to policing costs, given the municipal role in keeping our community safe. And be it further resolved that the town of Stratford, Prince Edward Island conveys this support in writing to local members of Parliament. And I guess that is it. This resolution bears a recommendation of the Committee of the Whole at a meeting held on April 26, 2023. So moved.
Have a seconder? Thank you. Okay, any discussion? I think this is fairly self-explanatory. I think there's, you know, I was interviewed by CBC about this, and I think, you know, it's pretty clear that the case, it's really a principle of fairness that we really didn't have we had a contract, and it was changed without our input, and it does cause, in a growing town like Stratford, where we have significant infrastructure gap, this just takes another piece of chunk of money away that we could be using for the benefit of our citizens. So I think it's hopefully the government will do the right thing and really rethink this approach.
Well, this doesn't reflect on membership.
Not at all. No, not at all.
This doesn't reflect on membership.
Not at all.
We weren't at the table dealing with collective bargaining. Our voice wasn't at the table. The RCMP went out without a contract, members without 6 years, and they deserve what they get. I mean, and finally they unionized so they could speak on it. So anyways, and all of a sudden they drop off 188,000 us, and we're a town, small town, that we just can't, you know, that's a big surprise to us, right?
Yeah.
You know?
That's a good point. It doesn't reflect on the members at all. In fact, we
No.
get really good value from
Yeah.
the members that we have. They're all really dedicated and professional, and we really respect and appreciate their service. And I would never want this to be seen as a reflection on individual members of the RCMP or the people who are policing our town. This is just a principal thing with their employer, with the federal government, that didn't give proper notice and didn't consult with municipalities about this, and we really feel that it's a principle of fairness. Any other comments or questions?
But there's some substantial, like some difference, like in Moncton, they're looking at $5 or $6 million. There's a lot of money. Different, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it's a lot of money across the board. I mean, if the FCM, they wanted to represent us, they had nobody at the table, right?
That's right.
Yeah, you know.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. No,
I think we've said that the police all night long, we've been commenting about the great job they're doing, and we're really happy with services we're receiving. And you look at the stats that we talked about, and there's only been one person caught breaking into cars in the last 4 months in Stratford. And that's significantly down. That's down by 90%. So, I mean, that's a police presence is part of that, right? And so I think we're really happy. But in fairness, we have to do what's right for the town.
And just to that, and I think it's important for the folks out there to know that Your Worship and Deputy Mayor and anyone else who was at that meeting, I think with the Superintendent, this didn't blindside them. I think there was a discussion, and they knew before it went out that it's not about the membership too. It's just a statement on the principle of how the negotiations occurred, and understanding it's going to be impossible for the RCMP to negotiate with 1,000 jurisdictions separately. That's not going to happen. But if they had used the FCM or some other means, it would have made a lot more sense. At least, you know, because like you said, we run $2,000 to $3,000 to the line every year. Can't have a deficit. So 188,000, $3 million for some others. It's just not fair. So hopefully this is the last time this occurs, and we don't want it to kind of cloud how we feel about them. We feel passionately we're getting great service from them, but this needs to be fixed for the next go around.
But you look at the Treasury Board, and you're looking at a contract. Members didn't have a contract for 6 years. It's not unheard of. You know what I mean? Unheard of.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I do have a comment and/or question. This, of course, makes total sense, and I'm in full support of prioritizing the communications in going forward. In regards to the past contract and the retroactive pay that we are facing, being responsible for, in different information that I've read, not necessarily in our town specific, but I see different comments from different municipalities about their readiness or understanding of what may be coming. And I'm just curious to know if anybody can, just so I have an idea, because there's reference, like, how much difference, how much was the discrepancy? Is there percentage discrepancy difference in what the raise or shift would be? Does that make sense, what I'm asking? For clarity? And I'm not looking for specific numbers for our municipality, just as an understanding in that there was a reference to it. I've never seen the contract, but I'd love to know just for clarity.
It's about 3.6% extra is what the negotiated amount was. We did have some information indicating it was going to be around 2%. I was at a meeting today with representatives from Public Safety Canada, and provincial representatives from Public Safety also, and it was all about contract negotiations. They did indicate that they're aware that we're not happy with this.
Yes.
The representative that was there did argue on our behalf quite a bit, but I think they are taking a very strong stance on this, and I don't know if we're going to get what we want. FCM and FPIM are negotiating this. But the deadline is coming up May 15th on whether or not we want to choose to pay it out over, I believe it's 2 years, Kim, or we pay the full amount. I suggest we take a long look at that next week. And that doesn't mean that we still agree with it. We've put all the information out here, including the resolution, to indicate that we need to have further contract negotiations in the future, and we need to get that message out there. And maybe there is still something they can do, but I still think we may have to at least sign on and indicate that, you know, we want to pay it over a certain amount of time. And if they are going to have a strong stance on it and still proceed with it, there will be interest if we don't sign on to it. So that's another decision that we'll have to think about before the 15th. And that's after they've already given us, or given all municipalities, a month extension. I don't know if they consider that again, but the individual I spoke to today said he did a lot of work on this file, trying to come up with a common ground, and he was the person that actually got the extension for a month. So I felt he was genuine, but he did caution on the fact that they are taking a strong stance on this, the federal government.
And is the piece in question the fact that there was a variance from the originally alluded to 2% to go to 3.6, or is the main challenge that it's happening, period?
From the FCM and FPIM standpoint, I think it's because we weren't brought to the table. There was no discussion or limited discussion with the municipalities across Canada. But I think a compromise could have been, and I mentioned that to them today, if they had to come back and said, well, we understand what we estimated and what you actually had to pay are a difference, and maybe reimburse that would have been something. But it doesn't even sound like they're going to look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Along those lines, we have to understand as well that because the RCMP have the unionization, whereas in the past they didn't, this increase is going to be carried forward at a higher cost to all municipalities served by the RCMP in future, including any further negotiated increases. And I'm sure this is going to cause, I'm not speaking from Stratford's experience, but I'm sure it's going to cause some municipalities to look at other options for policing services, and that's something that the RCMP will have to deal with, and whether they're taking too hard line of stance on this and not looking at any type of negotiation whatsoever, might cause them to lose some contracts down the road as well. And again, I'm not speaking from Stratford's experience. I'm not suggesting we look at other options, but I certainly keep an eye out for other municipalities who may make that decision and what benefits they might derive from that. And this is a decision the RCMP administration, national body, had made in relation to their stance, hardline stance that they've taken in relation to these unexpected increases for all municipalities, and that's something that they may well have to bear the brunt of down the road. But that's just me projecting ahead as to what the result might be for them. Again, not speaking for the Stratford experience, but Canadian experience overall, and we'll see whether that does transpire in any way with other communities.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? I'll call for the, Scotty stepped out, did he? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. Thank you. I'll ask Councillor Dowling to read the next resolution.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. This is in relation to correspondence policy, which is attached and has been forwarded to members of council previously. It is fairly extensive, but the resolution itself is CW 011-2023 correspondence policy, stems from the Committee of the Whole, moved by myself, whereas in 2003 a policy was drafted to deal with incoming and outgoing town correspondence. And whereas it was determined that the current policy is outdated and should be repealed and replaced with the attached updated correspondence policy, be it resolved that the attached updated correspondence policy number CW 011-2023 be hereby approved, and that policy number 20-FA-01 be hereby repealed. This resolution bears the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole at a meeting held on April 26, 2023.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Oh, thank you. Any comments or questions? It's fairly straightforward. It's just a change to updating the way we deal with correspondence to reflect the advancements in technology and that sort of thing. So, anything else? All right, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carried. Okay, thank you, Councillor. We'll now move to sustainability. I'll ask the chair of that committee, Councillor Gordy Cox, to give his report.
As you can see there was a meeting on May the 3rd, and the minutes from the meeting are included this evening that you can click on there. So report for today. A brief update on a recent meeting with members of the Stratford business community. This was the first time that an attempt was made for an in-person meeting since before COVID, and the discussion was facilitated with a report summary to follow. It is hoped that this meeting will be a catalyst towards getting some renewed energy and regular activity amongst the business community. And further consultation will be held soon through an online survey to this business community. Discussion was also held about lawn naturalization after a recent inquiry from a resident. I know our meeting on the 3rd, we had a really good discussion around the table with the members of the Sustainability Committee. And the staff provided some background information and shared some resources, including some examples found in other municipalities. The overall discussion was positive, though it was recognized that this is something that requires a lot more in-depth look before any discussions can be made. And staff agreed to discuss further information internally and did advise that any potential for proceeding will be anticipated to take up to 12 months. A community fridge is planned to be opened later this month and will be operated by Gifts from the Heart. It's located next to the Stratford Public Library on the Hopton Road. A food drive for it will be held this Saturday at Mike and Andrea's No Frills, and we encourage residents of Stratford to come out and support this great cause. Pondside watershed restoration work will be getting underway this spring after the delay last fall due to Hurricane Fiona coming to our island. And we'll start off with Moore's Pond work, and that will be obviously started very shortly, and then will be completed this year. At this present moment, it is not completely clear as to when Kelly's Pond work will proceed, as it is completed in tandem with the project the province needs to complete on the Keppick Road. Residents are reminded that they contribute to continue to access a free home energy audit, so residents can still get a free home energy audit, as well as assistance to navigate their financing, rebates, and energy projects through the SWITCH program. However, all funds to finance the main energy upgrades, like heat pumps, hot water, heaters, etc., have been used up at this present moment. The residential tree planting program is now underway. This is great news. There was 50 trees that residents could sign up and purchase a tree, one tree per resident. It was $50 for a tree. So what happens is the town and the resident work in conjunction in planting the tree. One of the most popular trees, by the way, that residents seem to really like, and it was picked quite often, was a red oak tree, which is nice to see. Stratford Water School, also known as Waters Cool, had 12 days of classes for Stratford and Charlottetown students, and a further 4 days in programming in Cornwall. Approximately 700 grade 5 students benefited from this water conservation program this year. Staff are busy under the sustainability file with a variety of projects underway, and we look forward to welcoming a few summer students as well, and we'll be here to help assist with this very busy workload. So that's my report.
Any comments? Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to see the work at Kelly's Pond. So just one question on that, the work under the Keppick Road, is that the culvert that we kind of talked about before that needs to be replaced? It is? Okay, that's great, because I thought that was maybe being deferred for a while, or did that?
It is, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought you were just clarifying what the report said.
Yeah.
Yes, we are waiting to coordinate the work that the province are going to do to replace that culvert under the road with us draining the pond and doing the work in the pond. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. So it is moving though. That's the main thing.
Yes, it is.
it's nice to see. It's been a while, and it's going to be a great thing for the town. The other thing I just want to clarify, I think Wendy may have the answer to this, but I know last meeting we talked about the Sawwig membership drive and tree giveaway. Is that this weekend?
Yeah.
It is this Saturday?
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us to understand, if you're looking for trees, buy a family membership or corporate membership or even a single membership, they are looking to give you native trees. So if you're looking for some, get out. It's a great thing. Get to meet the folks from Sawwig and understand all the passion they have for the community and what they're doing, and especially after Fiona with all the trees we lost. Let's try to get all those trees given away because we need them in the community.
Yeah, that, just to clarify, that's Saturday, 9:30 to 12 at Cotton Park.
Thank you.
Yep. You have to buy a membership, that's all.
Yeah, it's a great way of supporting the watershed group and
Yeah.
getting trees. It's like a win-win-win.
Okay, thank you for your report.
I just have a question, but community fridge, the refrigeration inside Gordy, like for just canned goods only, or just any refrigerating products that Wendy?
I'll let Wendy add to that.
Yeah, that's their intent. What they're waiting on right now is for Maritime Electric to hook them up, so they're not ready to go until they can get electricity for that, and I believe also just obviously lights and things like that. But that was the intent when they brought it forward. So as far as I know, that's still the intent for them to have refrigerated goods there as well. I can't 100% confirm that, but that was the intent originally, so.
But it is nice seeing it come to our community. I mean, other communities, you know, Prince Around have had this for a while now, and it's really well used. And I think it'll be well used here also, so looking forward to having that hooked up, yeah.
Yeah, I will just plug as well, Mike and Andrea's No Frills, I think actually you said that in the report, have the
yeah.
food drive this weekend, so, yeah, never mind.
So residents can contribute to, like drop food off there too, Wendy?
At No Frills this weekend, and once the community fridge is open, they will be able to drop it off during operating hours. So Gifts from the Heart actually will have set operating hours for it. That's how they operate their community fridges.
Okay.
I don't have those details, but happily we'll obviously share them with you guys and with the community once we know.
And while you're at the podium, I just want to commend you, Wendy, for all your work on the community fridge file. I think that was really good work. It was really a lot of moving parts. There was a lot of things, a lot of people, and that sort of thing. And I think you did an admirable job in getting that done. So thank you.
It's great to see it in the community for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Great job.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Councillor. Okay, next report is mine, accountability and engagement. There was no meeting. We only meet bi-monthly, so there was no meeting in April. However, there was some intergovernmental, actually it's called accountability and engagements. It's intergovernmental affairs and engagement is the official name for it now, so should change that on the headings. But yeah, so we did meet with, as noted earlier, with the Member of Parliament and Lawrence Macaulay, and with the two MLAs for our town, and they were both very positive meetings. A lot of quite a few follow-up items and that sort of thing. So I think that's the thing we need to maintain, is that those relationships are really important, and also at the staff level. I think there's a recommendation from the previous meeting that. You know, at the deputy minister and working level below that, director level, that staff really are going to maintain sort of good relations. They always do, but in order to any relationship, you need to be sort of visible, and your presence has to be known. So and those relationships have to be sort of nurtured. So we need to just make sure we do everything we can to maintain those good relationship with the provincial government and with the federal government and all our funding partners and all our stakeholders. So any comments or questions on
Your Worship, just I know there is a meeting planned when most folks are away at FCM, and I'll be chairing, I think, on your behalf at that meeting on the 25th. Just a question around the resident survey results. Wendy, I know you would have an answer for this. Just wondering when we could expect maybe some information, preliminary information on those for us.
Yep, they're working through the data this month, and I know they reached out to suggest probably early to mid-June they'd be ready to do a presentation for us all, so I'll get that in the calendars
Thank
here
you.
very soon.
And sorry, just as a follow-up question to that, I know in the transit survey, the recent transit survey, we got to see the actual responses, like outside of a presentation. Do you know what I mean?
The one that we just did in-house with the transit survey?
Yep.
Yeah, with
So
the runs?
with the annual survey, do we only see it in a presentation form, or do we see do we see it kind of the raw?
We have
data?
access to all of that data once they provide it to us. So they do a presentation that kind of highlights trends that they're noticing or things like that, but they then give us all of that data, so we absolutely have all the comments. And
Okay, so
you're
that comes after the
most welcome
presentation.
to have a look at. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions on intergovernmental affairs and engagement? If not, we'll go to human resources. Anything?
Jeremy?
No.
No report?
Okay.
Move on.
Okay. And at this point, number 18, inquiries by members of council. Is anything any member of council would like to inquire about on any subject, anything about the town? If not, we'll move to item 19, other committees, Stratford Seniors Complex report. I'll ask Deputy Mayor Gallant to give that report.
It's, reports in your package here. Here are a few items that we're working on. Great work by Kim. Kitchen cabinets have arrived. Work will start first week of June. The hallway in the common room carpet has been installed and looks great. Request for tender for building assessment and capital replacement plan update has been sent out and will close on May 25th, 2023. Seniors working paper file with the auditors. We currently have a waiting list of 22 people, and my thoughts, and probably put it in the mayor and the councillors, is down the road it would be a great resource if we had another building like this. It looks after people, seniors that with the CMHC plan there. Without them, we couldn't do this. But at the same time, it's people with just 2 pensions. You get your OAS and your CPP, and it's really a benefit to our community. And seniors take really advantage of this. It's really good to see, and CMHC helping out and us on the building, working together, and with the job that Kim's does, with looking forward. I mean, all the renovations keep it up to date and so on, and everything's up to date to 2023. It's well looked after, and I guess we leave CMHC in 25, Kim. Yeah, but in the meantime, hopefully we have it back. We have the plan back in 2025. Have the hopefully CMHC jumps in with us to facilitate this. It's great. It's great for the community. It's the waiting list of 22 people. The building's full, and there's room for opportunity to expand on this.
Yeah, that was one of the things we discussed with Member of Parliament Macaulay was, and he was quite interested in the fact that our current agreement with CMHC expires in 2025, and we'd like to get it renewed as a bare minimum. But we'd also like to use the same model for going forward with a new facility somewhere in the town. It's badly needed. The waiting list, I think, is going up. I think anecdotally, I seem to remember that there was less than 15 not too long ago. Now it's up to 22. So that's and we've only got 16 spots in the facility. Well, 15 spots and one elsewhere. So it's based on 30% of your income for rent, and
Subsidy.
covers, it's a minimum cost to CMHC other than the capital cost. So it doesn't cost a lot to operate once it gets put in place, and it works. It responds to a really big need of seniors, low-income seniors, so for affordable housing. So that's something we hope to be able to pursue with our funding partners.
Yeah. It's a great initiative. I don't know what year we took over, we started. I couldn't answer that question, but it's a great initiative.
Not sure.
Do you know, Jeremy?
1990?
1990?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it was a great initiative in 1990. So hopefully look forward.
Yeah, so it's
to
worked well for 35 years, yeah.
Commissioner
Yeah.
McCauley was interested in it.
Okay, any other comments or questions on Deputy Mayor's report? If not, we'll thank you for your report.
Yep.
And we'll move to appointments to committees. No new appointments. Any proclamations? No proclamations. Any other business anyone would like to bring to the table at this time? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Okay, so moved. Okay, so now we're adjourned. Thank you.